what's going on, everybody? It's ETAPRIME back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at the upgraded version of the Lenovo Legion Y700 tablet. Now this is the 2023 model, coming in with a much more powerful CPU, and if you remember, the first generation of the Y700 had the Snapdragon 870. And that one could definitely put the performance down when it comes to emulation and gaming, but we've got a much more beefier chip because they've upgraded it with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. But they've kept that same awesome form factor with an 8.8-inch display, making this the most powerful 8-inch Android tablet on the market right now. And speaking of the form factor, I think this is the perfect size for portability or on-the-go Android gaming, cloud gaming, and especially emulation. The original Y700 was one of my favorites, but having that bump in performance that we do here, I think this is definitely going to kind of knock it right out of the park. Inside of the box with the new Y700 tablet, basically what we're going to get here is a USB Type-C charging cable and a 65-watt PD charger. When it comes to the overall layout of this new model, not much has changed in the overall design. Down here, we've got our USB Type-C port plus one of our stereo speakers. Moving over to the other side, volume rocker, power button. Now with this one, they did away with the switch. On the original, we had a little gaming switch, but they've kind of swapped it out here for another USB Type-C port. And this is full function USB Type-C. We can do video out of this, and it even has a desktop mode built in. And they refer to this one as the long side USB port. This is where we're going to do all of our video out from. Taking a look at the specs of the new 2023 model, like I mentioned, for the CPU, we've got that Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. And with this, we get one Cortex X2 core up to 3.19 GHz, 3 A710 cores at 2.75 GHz, and 4 A510 cores at 1.8. Along with this, we've got the Adreno 730 GPU at 900 MHz, and they're offering this in two different storage and RAM variants. You can pick it up with 12 GB of RAM and 256 GB of internal storage, or 16 GB of RAM and 512 GB of storage, but both of them do support a micro SD card. I went up to 1 TB with it, not sure if it'll do a 2 or not. When it comes to this screen, it is absolutely beautiful. It's an 8.8-inch IPS at 144 Hz. It's got an aspect ratio of 16:10, resolution of 1600 by 2560, supports Dolby Vision, HDR10, and a maximum brightness of 500 nits. I mean, it looks really good for an IPS display. Dual stereo speakers tuned by JBL, Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.1, a 6,550 mAh battery with 45-watt quick charging capabilities, and this is running Android 13 right out of the box. Obviously, that Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 isn't a slouch whatsoever, and we've got a very quick system here. Everything loads up really nicely. That Wi-Fi 6 definitely helps out when loading up your web pages and Google Play, or even just cloud gaming in general. Super stable connection as long as you've got a good router at the house, and I am connected to my Wi-Fi 6E router. Widevine, that's something I always worry about with these tablets here. And luckily with this, we've actually got Widevine level 1. So if you take a look here, level 1, and this means that we can actually do HD content from Netflix, HBO, Hulu. Some of the tablets out there just don't support it, and it's really good to know that we have it here. Speaking of video playback, I mean, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 has more than enough power for 4K. Obviously, we don't have a 4K display here, but still, I like running it at 4K 60. Really, just to show you what kind of performance this thing can put out, and we're going to get 0 drop frames here on this Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. This is a 4K 60 HDR video because we do have that HDR display, automatically switches over, and the dual stereo speakers here, tuned by JBL, sound really great. Definitely not as good as an iPad Pro or the new Galaxy Tab S9, but for a smaller tablet, these are amazing speakers. Now, since this tablet has the Legion moniker, it's really meant for gaming, and there are some gaming-specific features built in here. We've got a full performance overlay here, so we can actually go to our power save mode. We can go to balance or performance, and what this is going to do is just kind of change that governor for us. And obviously, in performance mode, we're going to get the most out of this. Basically, it's just changing that governor for us so we can get that 3.19 GHz on the CPU and 900 MHz on the GPU in games that will support it. With Minecraft here, we don't quite need to go that high, but we've got a few other features here, like a built-in screen recorder. There is an on-screen key mapper. There's an option here to change how the haptics work with different games, but this is my favorite, the on-screen performance overlay. It'll give us our real-time FPS, CPU, GPU usage, temperature, battery, everything we need to know about the tablet while we're gaming can be on screen at any given time. And speaking of that frame rate, I've got this set up for 144 Hz right now. Obviously, Minecraft is dipping down a bit, but it's really nice to have this high refresh rate display. I'd say 120 would be perfect for an Android device. 144 is a bit overkill, but you know, we could definitely run this game here constantly at 120, and it is so smooth on this display. I personally love it. Obviously, Minecraft is going to run great on this. I didn't have to turn any of the settings down. We've got fancy graphics on, and I think I'm at 24 chunks, which is a pretty long draw distance for an Android device, but it works great. So let's take it up a bit to Call of Duty Mobile. And with this one, you could play with the on-screen controls if you want to, but I've got a Bluetooth controller connected. High settings, frame rate is set to 60. Now, I've actually got it to maximum, and hopefully we can get that 90 Hz in the future, but right now we're pegged out at 60. Looks great, performs just fine on the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. But what about Genshin Impact? Now, if you play this game on Android, you know how hard it can be on your system. But with this here, we're at high settings, 60 FPS, and we do get a few dips every once in a while when shaders are loading. But overall, it's a pretty enjoyable experience. I mean, it's really, really smooth. I really hope that the developers do take note of Android and add controller support, add a higher refresh rate for this game. They really do spend a lot of their development time on iOS, and you know, I completely understand. They've kind of got the same hardware to work with throughout, but it would be nice to have the option here on Android. Now, one area I'll be spending a lot of my time with this tablet in is emulation. And first up, we've got some PSP using the standalone version of PPSSPP, Chains of Olympus, 5x resolution, no hacks, we're using the Vulkan backend, and this is going to run at a constant 60 throughout. If we can get 5x with this game, which is notoriously hard to run on Android, with the easier to run stuff, we could go up to 10x. Now, it's really not going to make sense with the screen's resolution, but it's good to know that we can if we wanted to. Next up, we've got some Gamecube emulation using the Dolphin emulator. And by the way, I'm using the development build directly from the Dolphin website. So we do have a few more little features here built in with the development as opposed to the one that's available on Google Play. But F-Zero GX, 60 FPS, we're at 1x resolution, OpenGL backend, Firefield track, which is the hardest one to run. It works great on this device. So since we had some good luck with Gamecube, I figured we'd test out at least one Wii game. Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, one of my favorite fighting games of all time. 720p Vulkan backend. This is one of those games that does work very well on the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, and you can expect a lot of other GameCube and Wii games to run at full speed on this device. Some of them you might need to tweak around with the settings, but yeah, this is one of those chips you definitely want when it comes to these higher-end emulators on Android. And finally, for the emulation section, at least in this video, we've got some PS2 using Ether SX2, Gran Turismo 4, 2x resolution, and I know I could go up to 3x with this. I actually tested the harder to emulate game before I went to this and just kind of forgot to upscale a bit. So 2x, great performance, and when it comes to something like God of War 2, we can also keep that at 2x resolution. We're in safe mode, so we don't have any hacks going on with this, and it is at a constant 60. If you take a look up in the top right-hand corner, I know it's a bit hard to see. This didn't dip down at all, even with all of these characters on screen and the particle effects going. So PS2 on this device is good to go. Now, there's one last thing I wanted to take a look at. Like we saw, this does have two USB Type-C ports, and the long side port, that's what they call it, is going to be for a video out. And with this, we could mirror the tablet screen if we wanted to, or we could go to desktop mode. This is how I prefer using it. And I will have a full video coming up because there's actually a lot built in here. I've got a mouse and keyboard connected. That way it's very easy to navigate. And Lenovo's no stranger to desktop mode. They've actually been doing this for a while. They call it productivity mode. And it's on their higher-end Android tablets and some of their higher-end phones. But this is just a bit different. There's some gaming-centric features here that I definitely want to take a look at in my next video, but it's really great because it will do 4K 60 out of that USB Type-C port. Multi-window support, we can resize these, and we can actually use this separately from what's on the tablet right now. So if I wanted to run an app on the tablet screen and the external display, I can do it, no problem at all. So if you're interested in checking out what this thing can really do in desktop mode or productivity mode, definitely keep an eye on the channel because I'll have a dedicated video coming up really soon. So far, I feel that the new 2023 model of the Y700 is definitely a worthy upgrade from the older one. We have that Snapdragon 870 in the older version. Now we have the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. 144 hertz display. We've also got the extra USB Type-C port, the long side USB port. And when it comes to just the form factor, these are some of my favorites when it comes to just carrying this thing around for gaming and emulation on the go. The new Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 is a great tablet. There's no doubt about it. It's got the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, but the smallest one you can get there is an 11-inch screen, and it is a bit big to kind of lug around with. I really do like this 8.8-inch display, and with what we have here, I think it's putting out plenty of power for what we need. So if you're in the market for a smaller form factor gaming tablet, then this is definitely where it's at. I'll leave some links in the description in case you want to learn a little more, but keep an eye on the channel because I've got a couple more videos, and if there's anything else you want to see running on the new Lenovo Legion Y700 2023 model, let me know down below. And like always, thanks for watching.